because Gopher just flipped his around the other way. Keep it that way, Gopher. I think it's better. Keep it that way.
I thought I had it.
No, we the other way now. Don't worry about it. I think my hands pointed this way, yours pointed the other way. It's perfect. Let's just roll with it. Yeah, there we go.
You have to like, you have to like line up your arms so that it's just like.
It's just.
That's good. I love it a lot. Wow. An auspicious start. This is good. Hello and welcome to episode 46 of the Foam News Collective podcast. I'm KT. I'm here with Vile and Grim. How are y'all doing right now?
Good.
I am doing.
We're doing
on
right?
like 4 hours sleep. We're going.
Yeah. It's been a time lately. We're not gonna get into it on this podcast because I know a lot of people are coming here to hang out. But you know, I'm here. I've got my civil disobedience as civil defense button on. I'm looking at the camera, so I reached for the wrong side of my shirt. But we're just gonna leave it at that, and we're gonna move on for the time being. We have a really special guest today. Who is a friend of the show, longtime good friend of the show, Ko-Fi supporter, but more importantly, he's going to balk at this, but I'm going to say it anyway, a master artisan blaster modder. And listen, you know what?
Oh, quiet, Gopher. You know it's true.
When I'm holding when I actually have one of your works in hand, I get to say stuff like that because I have something to base
exactly.
I'm not just babbling. Yeah, that's what you did to yourself by sending this to me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've got too much stuff in my basement and I'm trying to get rid of it.
Anyway, Iron Gopher, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for asking.
Good.
It's been a long day, like you said, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Really quickly before we get into Gopher's history a little bit and then just kind of get to babbling because this episode, I'm trying to be a little less linear than we have been because we haven't had time to just kind of shoot the shit and talk about new blasters and talk about whatever. So we're gonna do a little bit more of that this episode. But really quickly, a couple updates about the show that we wanted to drop before we get too deep into stuff. First up, we have the podcast guest scheduled for the rest of the year. We have 3 episodes left after this before we take our winter break. And, today we have Iron Gopher. Next 2 weeks from now, on episode 47. And I should have just put this in front of me. I don't know why I didn't. We're going to have band blasters on. Who, in addition to being a hobby designer and making cages and wheels and like
cages,
a whole
wheels,
system.
and motors.
Yeah,
I would say
it's like a
flywheel
whole like
packages.
tune system. Yeah.
They have been doing design work for companies that, including Siren. So we're going to be talking to them about that as well as their other work. After that, we will have Go Slow Taco, Colin, also a Ko-Fi supporter, friend of the show. And we'll be talking, again, among other things, because he's been super involved in the hobby for so long, we'll be talking about the Corbett charity drive, which is going to be happening right around the same time that we have him on the show. And for our last episode of the year, we're going to have a little bit of a surprise, and we will be the guests on the show, and I'm going to leave it at that for the time being. Also, I want to put this out here, and this will also happen in our Discord and possibly on like a YouTube community post. We are looking for some volunteer labor, and I think that we have been really hesitant to ask for that because I don't like asking people to work for free, but we're looking realistically at things that need to get done that people might feel like they can help with. And we have a lot of people asking us how they can help. And so we sort of identified a few ways that people could help. And if you feel like you can contribute in any of these ways, you should definitely reach out to us. Our email address is posted publicly in a couple different places. And we have a feedback form. You could potentially use that, although that's designed to be anonymous, so maybe not. Or just DM us on Discord.
We also
But
have the ticket system they could reach out to us through.
That's
which
true.
Would
That's
be a
true.
lot more like, yeah.
Yeah. We have the ticket system on the Discord as well. But we are okay. Where is the list? God,
The
I'm
list.
so.
So
I'm
I
looking
can,
at the outline of our
I
meetings.
have the list right here. So the things we are looking for are, for example, further expanding our localization for subtitles. If you are fluent in Spanish and confident in your ability to make Spanish subtitles, love that.
Yeah, that also. We're going to talk a little bit later too about the person that's currently doing Chinese localization for us, Jake, who's been an amazing helper in this project, and we want to expand that program. And it's basically we send you the transcript of the show, and you can like auto translate it to Spanish and then review it and do edits to make sure that it actually makes sense. And this is just so we can have proper Spanish subtitles on the show. So if that's you, please reach out to us. That's also, if you're like someone who's studying Spanish in school, it might be something we could like sign a letter for you or something and get you school credit for. I don't know. So anyway, what else do we have, Grim?
The additional things that we have a listing for a records keeper. So in the past, we have had a master spreadsheet of every episode of the contributors to a episode's news story, the story itself, what it was, what episode it was related to, and we have a whole master spreadsheet. The number one problem being is time. Time is key. We invest a lot of time into the show. I really realized that at the live podcast when we like listed out everything we do on a week to week.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh
yeah,
we do a lot in this production, huh? It doesn't feel like it as much anymore since we've gotten into a groove, but like it would greatly help. The other things we have is moderation. At some point or another, I'm going to be putting together application forms because it has come to our attention that at this point, FNC is a whole lot larger than I was ever expecting it to be. It's a whole lot larger than KT was expecting it to be, and we need help moderating the server. While I do when I am available the Discord overall management, I am not necessarily a moderator. I am not awake 24/7. Axel is not awake 24/7. We can't be expected to see all things. So in a better effort to make a more friendly, inviting environment and one that is conducive for a news production schedule, we would like to open slots for mods. 2 to 3 is the ideal hope.
And we're especially looking for people in time zones farther afield than what we have currently.
Ideally,
someone on the West Coast, somebody in Europe or Asia.
Yeah, if you're in another time zone, that would be quite wonderful. So that way we have people at different hours. Or if you just have a really screwed up sleep schedule like me, that also works too. Okay, that's also fine.
So yeah, look out for those things because we're definitely looking for opportunities for folks to get involved with what we're doing, and we would appreciate you so incredibly much. Show credits and all that. So, but for now, I want to talk to Gopher, and part of it too, because it's one of those things where it's like I feel like you're doing such powerful work and like pushing the art, in a lot of ways, but it's somewhat invisible work. Like people have to be looking for what you're doing, I think, in order to find it. And so will you tell folks a little bit about your background, how your skill set, how you apply those skills to what you do in the hobby? Just give them a little background.
All right. Well, I'm not your traditional hobbyist. I'm not super interested in like playing, going out, shooting the blasters, all that stuff is sort of secondary. I'm really interested in just making cool objects, or as Adam Savage would say, gun-shaped objects. The whole thing for me has always just been to make like props. And to that end, I've spent a lot of time studying art in a couple of different fields. I came from originally a background in line drawing and figure painting and things like that. From there, I started doing like more comic style drawing, which was very short lived. And then I moved into prop painting and building and making things that way because I discovered a love of making through woodworking. And I became a metal fabricator at roughly the same time. So I have this weird sort of dichotomy of skills that all translate back to plastic.
Yeah.
I really started diving into the hobby in about 2018, just sort of lurking, looking at things, trying to find things that I liked. I came across a maker from New Zealand, whose name escapes me right now, and Vim Fuego, good lord, who is doing, or was doing at the time, incredibly detailed wall hanger pieces in this sort of like very grunge aesthetic that really just sort of turned my conceptualization of what a Nerf blaster was on its head. It made me really look at the hobby from a different angle, and that's when I started diving into it and realizing that people were modifying things to make them shoot harder, faster, further, and it caught my attention because I'd never seen anything like that, and it became very interesting very fast, and I fell down a rabbit hole. I realized that not many people were doing the kind of art that I wanted to do, so I spent a lot of time looking at miniature makers, model makers, things like that, for different techniques that I could probably utilize to get a more realistic and less toy aesthetic. And pulling from a lot of different sources, I've sort of developed a repertoire of things that work for me. And I try as much as I can to put information out there, but it's generally met with resistance, and I understand that this is a very particular style. Yeah. It's not for everybody. It's definitely not for public use.
Right. Well, but not everything has to be, and like it's people understanding what is what and where it belongs is an important part of that. That's why I appreciate your, like, there always needs to be. We've talked about this too in terms of like the people who push blasters to shoot ridiculous FPS numbers, 500, 600, or whatever. Well, I guess we're at what's the cap right now, like 530 something.
Yeah, it's getting close to that 550 range.
And
almost.
It's like there's obviously no practical use in that. But except then you take the skills learned there and they can be applied to all kinds of other things. And just it's impressive that it happened. So I'm so glad that you are here pushing this art in that direction and showing that these things are possible. I think that's extremely important.
Well, thank you.
What I've seen you do some other stuff too. I've seen you make some like model figures and stuff. Have you done like Warhammer stuff, or have you done? Yeah, I know Grim has, or Vile has one.
I have two, actually. Yeah. I have two. I don't know if I could show them on stream though.
Well, we have technically shown one in the show before.
It's true. We have,
true.
Yeah.
Wait, really? Which one?
People are gonna have to go back and figure that out.
Yeah.
Oh, good lord. That's terrifying. Okay.
It's there somewhere.
somewhere.
I have a wildly varied hobby history, but for the most part, like along with props, I like making masks and helmets because I think like they kind of go hand in hand. Here, right above my desk, I have a nice Boba Fett.
Ooh.
It's a little dusty.
Okay, wait.
I do a lot of sanding right here.
Hold it upside down relative to you. Now it's right side up on the camera. No, it's good. I like that.
So.
Wow, yeah. Look at the detail in that. Look at the weathering. You have this like
wonderful.
very specific. Sorry to the audio listeners who are like, oh great. But you have one thing that you do in a way that I just don't see much of is weathering. I'm a huge fan of the like clean looks that most blaster builds have, but like that is something that I've seen you push a lot. Is the weather thing. And I know you said that you were inspired by sort of like grungy looking builds from the start. What I don't know, like what kinds of things do you use to achieve those kinds of effects?
Okay, so there's actually a lot that can go into this if you really want. Like, let's use this capsule core blaster as example.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's a
on
strife,
top of
right?
this,
At some
it's just a
point in its
strafe.
past. Yeah, yeah.
It's just a strafe. There's a tiny bit of cyclone shock and a surge fire up here at the front, but a lot of it is just styrene plastic sheet to get the rest of this construction. And then a Hawkeye half dart kit down here and a 3D printed heel to fill out the grip. But a lot of this damage is just going through and hitting things with like a carbide bit on a grinder
Or
or
rock.
a rock.
Full
Does
on rock.
fantastic work.
That's
you
why
can
Gritty
heat
lives
things
here.
up to make them more pliable and just give it a little push to get a more natural look. Some of these little pinholes are just a pin vise drill bit. You know, you come in at different angles and give it little wiggles, things like that. Or you can heat up the tip of a poker and get that same thing. I don't generally like doing that; it's less controllable. But that's how I achieve most of my physical damage is, you know, cutting into things with a file, cutting into things with a grinder, hitting it with a rock, throwing it down the stairs, treating it like you don't love it. Because
It's literal
ultimately,
damage. Like,
well, yeah, ultimately somebody didn't love this, and that's why it looks the
Right.
way that it does.
Or they loved it too much.
Or they loved it too much. That's
I mean,
that's a
okay,
perspective
so
I haven't
that's
played
another
with.
big thing that I want to get into because we've talked about this with your builds before is storytelling. I feel like that's
Okay.
so important. Like going into a build with an idea in mind of what its history is and like how do I reflect this history in the actual build? How do you think about stuff like that?
So sometimes I go into a build with a lot of backstory in mind. Boomslang is the obvious candidate
Right.
for an example there. And sometimes I just have a want or idea. Like this, my entire goal was just to make it the smallest strife I possibly could and still keep it looking nice and being cohesive.
Yeah.
The fact that it became a Dragon Ball Z blaster was incidental after the fact. But I think that having a storyline for what your piece is, where it came from, how it got to be where it's at, can inform a lot of your choices and make things easier to figure out. It can sort of lead you down paths more intrinsically than if you're just making arbitrary choices and lead you to a certain kind of honesty that might not otherwise be there.
I've seen that with us before, actually. A lot of times, obviously, I have my build sitting here. You know, we hang out with a lot of other people who do integrations, and sometimes they'll suggest ideas for the build that I'm currently working on. And for me, the storyline doesn't really fit with their suggestions. And a lot of times I will turn down the suggestions simply because it doesn't fit in the idea or the storyline of it for the same reasons. It keeps you on a path, at least, where if one idea does come up and it really fits beautifully with it, you're just like, you know what? That's fantastic. I'm going to take that. That fits perfectly with my world or my design or whatever it is.
The first one that comes to mind for you specifically was your last Merge Masters entry that you were working on with like everything down to like even the like optic mounted on the side to like how the drum system was made, and like everything about that one was fully integrated into that like world building theme you had made for it.
I take a lot of suggestions, ideas, I should say, from Gopher. Gopher actually kind of helped. Hey, like, I mean, I'll sit here with KT. I'll say the same thing. Like, Gopher absolutely has kind of created this world of like, no, this is a really good way and a good mindset to build this stuff in. Yeah. Because it really does give it direction. It gives it a purpose, and like everything you're doing makes sense. Even the damage, you know, a lot of times damage is supposed to be sort of randomized, but even then you're still telling the story. You know, why was it beat up like this? How would you have, you know, are the scratches on the right hand side because they dropped it on the right? Did they prop it up somewhere and it fell a particular way? Like it could be a number of things that you do with it, and it really does make a huge difference in what you do for your builds.
Well, and like you've got to think about certain things too, like is the operator of this right-handed or left-handed? Because that's going to
Mm-hmm.
affect how certain things wear and look and behave and how they're mounted.
Yep.
Were they experienced or inexperienced? Were they in a rush, or was this something that was cared for?
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that can sort of pull you in directions that maybe you didn't want to initially go, but makes sense for the story that you're trying to tell.
Exactly.
And that's if you're even trying to tell a story. Maybe you're not trying to tell a story. You don't have to.
Well,
This isn't
sometimes the
business.
story
We're
just
here to have
comes from
fun.
the build. Like sometimes the
True.
build just starts to unravel a story as you go along with it. That's the nice thing. It's never concrete. Sometimes the story at the beginning helps with the direction, but sometimes in just building something cool, you start thinking of the story as it unfolds.
The initial concept could be the seed, with the blaster ending up being the fruition and final product that blossoms the rest that comes out from it sometimes.
Exactly.
essentially.
Well, and
Yep.
if you're like, if you're like building for a LARP or something, right? There's a story that exists there, or you're writing a character and you're creating an object that goes with that character. There's all kinds of different ways you could
I know a
decide where
lot
that
with
comes
like the
from.
German scene. It's really that way, as far as I understand. They're a lot more into LARP, and then there's like stuff like Afterworlds, which we have in the U.S., and then like some
Right.
other smaller events where such things end up occurring.
Yeah.
A number of
See, and
people that kind of do that stuff, but less commonly found on the Discord side of things, or Reddit and so whatnot.
And that's always just been more interesting to me. If something has a story, has a direction, can tell you something about itself just by looking at it. Like, it's all fun and good if a blaster looks like super sleek and factory, and like maybe it was produced by Hasbro or whatever other company. This could have come off the line at some point. Like, that has a place. I understand the allure. It's just not for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's good to have a unique style, and I'm really glad to have you here to chat with us today, even if it means having another pair of hands to feed here on the podcast today. But I wanna just kind of go through some of the new releases and stuff. We haven't done, like I said earlier, we haven't done anything like that in a while, and have you?
We were
what?
literally talking about this on the last meeting too. It's like, oh, we haven't really done that in a minute, huh?
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of guests on, and they have so many interesting things to say, and Gopher has a lot of interesting things to say. But we're also, I think
No,
this group
do your
is,
job.
we're all pals here. Well, so X-Shot is suddenly really busy again. They've put out all the horror fire blasters, which are pretty much just the insanity blasters with decorative stuff on them. Do you ever any of you that do integrations, do you ever mess with some of that stuff, like the alien themed stuff or the dinosaur themed stuff, or I've seen you do the dinosaur themed stuff, Vile.
Yeah, I've been trying to get into mine more. They're a little bit different because they're so organic in shape,
Right.
and it's interesting, but they do take a little bit more time because there's a lot of like trying to make things, be cohesive, kind of as Gopher was saying. Like it has like flowing correctly or connecting properly. It's just a bunch of weird stuff. But yeah, I think they're cool. I personally really want some of the horror fire stuff because I like the skulls all over it. I think those would be really fun to mess around with.
Couldn't you just take Halloween decorations and like integrate them into a blaster in theory?
Some of those are weird plastics.
Yeah.
That's the one downside.
Doesn't X-Shot also have weird plastic?
Their stuff should still work.
Is it pretty good now? I mean, it depends on the line to some degree, right?
Yeah, I'm not as versed in the actual process of making integration, but I do know a number of people who've done similar things. I know, like, Frankenzilla, for example, did just that with like Halloween prop stuff, integrating them into stuff, or like you doing a lot of putty work and other custom stuff to make his stuff look like horror amalgamations in some cases. Or as far as organic goes, the first thing that came to mind was the Oh, I don't know the name of the designer, but there was like this one strife that had Alien Menace stuff kitted all over it that was
Oh yeah,
converted to
yeah,
shoot half the. Yeah,
yeah.
it's just like that
Oh,
very
who
specific
was
one.
that? I
I
know which one
remember
you're
seeing it on
talking about,
Facebook
though.
back in the day, and
It
I
was like
can't remember.
skeletonized, and then they put the Alien Menace parts all over the outside of it. It was really cool looking. I know the one you're talking about, but I cannot remember who
Yeah.
made that one.
I don't know.
Honestly,
The-
that feels like a Reddit post to me. So I
I
don't think
found
it
it
would be
back on the
a name
Facebook
that
way
we.
back when.
Oh, okay.
So it would have
Yeah.
been under the
Something
person's
different
real
then.
name. It's
I-
been on. It's been everywhere. It's been on Reddit, Instagram. I think it was like. It may have even been in like a This Week in Nerf like feature at some point.
I think it was on This Week in Nerf. There's
There
my
we go.
my
I
abomination.
love that. I love the mix of the alien and the dinosaur stuff. I think that thing has so much promise.
I still need to get it back onto it. The alien one was a little bit old, and
Yeah.
the plastics were a bit meh. So I
Right.
need to either try to work with it more or get another one. Either way.
Well, and that's the kind of thing I guess you don't really know until you have the product in hand, right? Because like the horror fire stuff has so many weird layers of plastic on it, and a shape like this vial's got a Rex Rampage that's got some stuff integrated on it, including like back shell from an Alien Menace era blaster, and I've seen you do actually this here. Monarch, this blaster of Gophers that I have here, uses like the front tip is a part that was actually the inside of a barrel on a sledge fire. And I've seen you do stuff like that where you use parts of a blaster in a different way that people have seen a million times before, but not in the way that you're seeing it now. And you create these new lines. So I guess you just don't really know until you sort of reverse engineer whatever the designers did on an off-the-shelf product, right?
Well, I think the important thing is to get in there, open it up, and sort of dissociate yourself from the shape of the blaster if you really want to use things in a weird or creative way. You know, when I was making Monarch, I had opened up two different sledge fires. Two sledge fires gave their lives for that thing. So I had two of those barrels rolling around, and I remember I cut one of them up trying to do something for a different blaster for like a muzzle, and then I realized, oh, I could just put this back into the Monarch. This would be great.
Yeah.
And it
Well-
solved the issue of covering up the scar for me.
And you end up with that fascinating double stock that I love a lot. That I was just
Yeah, the
showing.
two stocks that were flipped flipped upside down with one another.
Yeah.
Oh,
Xshot's also doing, and I just saw the picture of this. Xshot is also doing their Pro line. So we've always wondered why they put the Pro line under the Skins line, but there was only one print, the red and black one that Target has. And now there's been all this confusion with the Fury X, where it originally showed up in the black and red, and then it came back in the in this blue and white with a pink magazine. Let me see if I can. And
I
that
do
seems
much
to be the
prefer the
color.
blue and white. That seems like a
Totally.
much better color scheme.
Oh, it's so
Mhm.
nice. I like
Yeah.
it a lot.
Me too. Way bigger fan of that. And
No hate to Red Grim.
well, it looks like now we're getting the long shot in that colorway too. This picture is going around, and someone posted it in a private Facebook group and said a quote unquote higher up at Zuru posted this image, but it's hard to tell if was this a prototype, and then because we saw photos of this colorway when we first saw the blaster. I hope we get this because
I think we've seen like
Good-
four
good and
different
nice blue
colorways
long
now.
shot.
There was like the red, white, and yellow or whatever it was, like that
Right.
weird, like very colorful one. There's this colorway, the base colorway, and then the Wacom colorway that like only a couple exist of.
I mean, that one doesn't really count.
That
'cause,
one doesn't
like,
really
You
count,
know,
but,
obviously they made 10 for Wacom, and then they chuck the files in their backup server somewhere, and they're not making more
Yeah.
of those.
See,
But,
and then Gopher goes over here and paints the long shot in a blue silver color on his desk right here.
It's so
and
good.
Literally,
Yeah.
it's a really nice colorway. It's like blue and yellow and silver and stuff. It's really nice.
It looks great. There's a lot of potential. And I mean, they designed this shell for it to take the ink pattern. So that I imagine there's a lot of like places that want to take color on this shell.
I will say the ink system that they use for these is a pain in the ass to deal with if you want to do a full paint job.
Oh, really?
Really. You've either got to sand it incredibly aggressively or be willing to do several base coats because, in particular, the reds that they use in the ink just pull themselves up through base layers to the point where you can still see and read things, and sometimes they even have like a dimensionality to them.
Huh.
So, if anybody out there is looking to paint or modify one of these printed blasters, the skins or whatever it may be from whatever company, they can be a little bit problematic. Be prepared to try a couple of times.
Interesting. Well, I probably won't do that, so I won't worry about it. Everyone else pay attention.
Easy enough.
Man, I it's so funny because like I like modding, but I just don't have time anymore.
Yeah.
I produce this show. That's my contribution now.
It's a hefty contribution. What you guys are doing here is amazing.
Well, thank you. I mean, Viola's still modding somehow.
I don't know how Vile manages to do that because I'm just like I help KT with the show. We do the thing, and then I'm just kind of like, yeah, I could go for like a Nerf event or a game or something, but like that's about it.
I don't want to speak for Vile, but I'm going to. I know that once you start like streaming and you have a schedule, there's momentum that comes from that. It's the same momentum that keeps us going on the show. I think where as long as we're doing it consistently, it's easier to.
It's a schedule for me. It's the because I've been doing Fridays and Saturday streams on Twitch for the mods for a few years now, and it's been very, very consistent. And for me, it's like if I'm not streaming, it feels weird.
Right.
My whole week gets thrown off. I forget what day it is. Those streams are very like they set my schedule, which is funny. So that's why I just sit there, and then I'll do long ones because people are like, "How do you go for 8 hours?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I just sit there and I do something for 8 hours.
Yeah. Well, it depends on what chat's doing. It depends on what you're working on.
Yeah.
I can cert.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as far as internal clocks go, I can certainly relate because it's like I couldn't tell you what time of day it is or what the day is, but I could sure as heck tell you if I have a doctor's appointment today because I have those weekly ones, and I can tell you if it's a production week. Those are the only two things in my brain that I'm typically aware of. Is that like I just kind of intrinsically know production week or medical appointment tomorrow.
We actually put production weeks on our family calendar now because it's just easier for everybody.
It is like
Here's another thing that another company is doing: reshelling their blasters and repainting them.
Mm-hmm.
What's everyone's thoughts on this? Not this blaster in particular necessarily, but we're getting the Mark IIs and we're getting the which at least one local person to me has one already and says it feels just as good as the old one.
Yeah, I think it's just a new colorway. Is all it is.
I mean, we've definitely seen, maybe mostly Hasbro, but we've seen some of these companies like reissue a blaster and go cheaper on the production on the second time around. So it's nice to know that maybe Dart Zone is not going down that road.
I mean, they cut a lot of the material out of the MK2. Like they don't have the holster, they don't have the front muzzle piece. They don't so there's all those chunks of, and the one thing they did give you was like a lower FPS spring, and that was about it.
Yeah.
They removed, but there's no holster for the speed mags and stuff. Like there's all these parts that they're just removing from this new line.
Yeah, but they do seem to be giving us. Well, so the Omnia is a little different, right? Because they did, at least in theory, change some stuff on the Omnia. But the new Omnia and the new colorway, and then what are the other ones? They did those other little revolver pistols. I can't remember.
Blitzfires.
Blitzfires, yeah. I wonder how far back they'll go. I mean, it would be neat to see them go. Oh, I guess the first one was the Magnum. The Magnum
the
X2.
drum, the X2.
The drum
That's right.
blaster that was like their big blaster that was like really popular. One of the initial ones. It's very interesting because I'm not particularly a fan of the color green and purple together. Sorry, Vile. However, interestingly enough, I know like 3 or 4 different people who are probably pretty pleased with this colorway. Like one friend I know, they really like that shade of green specifically for blasters, so I can see them painting like the purples to other stuff for an easy, just like then and done.
Right.
I mean, there was a dude up in Kansas City at the local Kansas City club when I was still able to attend that one, who would go into the effort of painting all of their blasters in this exact color scheme. And now Dart Zone is just producing them injection molded in this color scheme, which is very ironic.
My scared gear is mad at you right now. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. That's it. Yeah, my scared gear that I actually have in that exact same colorway is mad. It feels betrayed right now, Grimz. I can't believe you would have packed
it makes it more personal because I handpicked those out of the box.
Yeah, you packed the box that got sent to me.
I packed both yours and KT's and a lot of other people's.
Yep, it's true.
I feel like if these were a little bit less fluorescent and a little bit more saturated, that they'd be a dead ringer for Piggy's stuff.
Right.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I
They
feel
are
like the
very
darts
close.
are pretty close.
Yeah.
Yes, because those are a little bit more saturated. But it's like, it's just a hair too bright.
Right.
It's like
If they just toned it down a little
safety
bit.
fluorescent colors, like
Yeah, it feels like high vis.
best. Yeah.
There you go.
I also we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but like while we're talking about kind of what each company has been doing that's interesting, Busby, of course, the Twist Fury, that still fascinates me so much. And Taffy's teaser on this podcast that more collaborations between hobby creators and Busby are coming is,
I think that's cool.
exciting and ominous.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see what that will look like. And of course, Captain Slug still works for them. Did you find one in a box in good shape? Is your box in good shape?
Yes. These are phenomenal. So
I need one in a good shape box for the museum.
I was in the
Desperately.
middle of nowhere, and because I had checked $6 generals, and then I was literally driving on this back, like there's nothing around, and all of a sudden there's just $1 general, and I'm like, okay, hang on, let's turn around. And I turned around, and they had 4 of them, and I bought 2.
God. Okay.
So I opened one, and the second one was for a giveaway for my Boobtober. So unfortunately, the 2 that I have, I can go back. It's not that far, but I can go back and get it. It's like a little bit of a drive.
We need one. So like, I mean, we've talked about having the hobby museum not be a centralized thing where it exists in multiple places, and I just want to make sure that there is one that's cataloged somewhere that has a box that's in good shape, because every single one in my area, whatever box they were in, the top got smashed. And all the boxes are folded over on the top. Also, I feel like I've confirmed this at this point, but when you look at the barrel and look at the side on the outside of the box, is there a slight imperfection in the plastic kind of on the top, on the side facing you?
On the side?
On the round part of the barrel that sticks out.
Is it like right in here?
Yeah, there-ish.
It's like a line almost. Like there's a difference between texture almost.
Yep.
Yes.
I think that's in the mold. Because every single one that I've had, and at least 1 or 2 other people who have them, have said that it has that same imperfection. So I think that's in all of them.
That's interesting.
I have my other one too that I've already taken out of the box, and it also has the exact same weird like line that comes right across this edge in the front.
I think they all have it. That's really interesting. Or it maybe I don't know. Like I don't know why they would have
pass. So like on machining, you can have 2 different passes, and one of them has a little bit of a rough texture. And if you don't go back over with like a nice, really really tiny finish pass, it was like they did that where it just weirdly puts a line in there. So it'll be visible, but not like.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that
it.
it's in. God, sorry. It's interesting that it's in exactly the same place on every single one.
Yeah, that's definitely a mold thing.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I'm glad this thing exists. People are already modding it and coming up with kits for it.
Oh yeah, I'm
Um,
super. That's why I wanted them. Is I was like, these kits look great. I want this half dark kit.
I think the existence of this and the fact that there's more things to come from Busby is very interesting, because I remember like having this thought that this might be a possibility all the way back when I remember Blasterface had said basically that Busby was the ones that were producing the Game Face stuff, and if you just point them in the right direction, they have the facilities to make really good stuff.
right. Yeah. And we'll see what the future holds with that, I guess. But I'm glad that someone's doing it. I don't know that I expected Busby to be that company, but
I'm here for it.
I'm super here for it.
Yeah.
The other sort of off the shelf thing I wanted to talk about, and Grim and I have some joy to share with this, is the Ace of Spades, the new Destiny pistol.
Oh my god, yes.
Yeah. Well,
I'm looking at mine right now.
And I probably should have brought mine from downstairs, but I'm not going to run and do it now. I as a Bungie fan, even though I've barely gotten to play Destiny, just really am in love with objects like this. That you know, like it's a fraction of that effect you're talking about, Gopher, with building an object. Like an object like this is about as close as you can get buying something off the shelf for a cheap price to achieve some of that. Like the Needler.
Oh yeah.
The Needler freaking nailed it, right?
The Needler is a great example.
Yeah.
I also the smart rifle, the Aliens pulse rifle that they put out.
Right, I've heard that's
while
really
the
good
colors
too.
are the mold is fantastic. The colors are terrible.
Right.
But
Yeah.
But they had to be.
Right.
exactly. It gets you 90% of the way there. And the Ace of Spades is quite interesting because it's a flywheel pistol. Like it's not something, essentially the pulse rifle is just a rapid strike. The Needler is just the what's that?
Swarm fire,
Swarm fire, speed
swarm
swarm,
thing,
whatever.
But the Destiny pistol, the Ace of Spades, sort of fills a new niche where it's not really something that we've seen before. So
I mean,
it's
we've had
interesting in a couple
the
of ways
Ultra
that way.
2, but this has the replaceable
That's
cylinders and
Yeah, it's close, but
it's a
not the
completely
same.
different ammo type.
Yeah.
right, of course. Yeah, I think it's cool. I mean, I'm excited to see people. They're also, like you see a few people modding some of the other, like we've obviously seen a lot of people do paint jobs on the pulse rifle, and we've seen a lot of people do paint jobs on some of that stuff. But those are much more expensive, even though they're not like super limited or hard to get, but they're definitely more pricey. And so there's definitely a larger barrier to entry to deciding to really mess with it.
How much was the Ace of Spades?
The Ace of Spades is much
Ace of
less
Spades was literally
expensive.
$50, and the
Yeah.
thing that's staggering to me about that is not only do they have to make the limited injection molds, not only are they paying the licensing fee to Bungie, they now also have to pay the licensing to the artist that they unintentionally took the design from. And then it also includes the other thing you have to consider is it's using an ornament. It includes an in-game ornament, and so Destiny 2 has like in-game microtransactions, and since they had to design a skin for that you can get for free with it, that retails for $10 in game. So that's a $10 like skin in game that you're getting. That's 2 licensing fees being paid, a limited, very expensive, like to produce like mold that you have to create for a one-off blaster.
Yeah.
I'm shocked
Good
that
Lord.
It was $50.
Well,
like, I've seen people like sell 3D printed files for something to just convert a double strike into something adjacent to an Ace of Spades for more. So it's just like.
Well, and how long until it goes on sale? Like people have picked up Needlers for like $40.
Yeah, I'm almost curious if they just don't go on sale and they just all sell out at this price.
That's true. It's possible. It's possible. I mean, it's a question of how many they produce, and we don't really know the answer to that.
We don't really know the answer to that one. I definitely know I'm excited about the one that I have.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate the motors that it has, but I'm okay with running it at stock performance. My only concerns have been the hinge, and spoiler alert, I may or may not know someone who is potentially working on a replacement part
Yeah.
for that, so that won't be a problem for much longer. Hopefully,
That's great.
Hopefully,
I imagine, and I imagine we're going to start to see cosmetic work on it because there's a lot of different takes that you could do.
there are so many ornaments for in game as well that you could base a paint scheme off of
Yeah.
as well. Like, I mean, if I had the patience and time, I'd totally paint one up in like the I forget the exact name of the ornament, but there's this very nice black and gold one that's like primarily gold. I think I can't remember the name, but it's beautiful. And I would want to do it off of that one. Oh, my expressions are changing because I'm clicking on my keyboard.
Trying to look something up.
Yeah, trying to remember the.
You need a typing animation.
Something
you can just
like
put it in a
sure.
typing animation and then use your keyboard again. Are you Gopher? Did you get an Ace of Spades?
I looked at one cursorily. I'm not a Destiny fan. I don't have any problem with the franchise. I just never played the game, anything like that. It's interesting. If they go on sale, I'll probably pick one up, but I have not as of yet.
Makes sense.
If you are waiting for them to go on sale, keep an eye on GameStop. They usually buy a huge backstock and then can't move them.
That makes sense, actually. Yeah, GameStop.
Yeah,
is probably...
that is true.
Yeah.
Also, this will already be like out in the actual news by the time the podcast comes out, but you can get replaceable cylinders for them now. That half darts, no mods required. Very cool thing for like the blaster.
Yeah, that's gonna be great.
I really like the fact that the cylinders are just like easily droppable, and you can just swap them out for other ones already.
Yeah, that's sweet. I'm gonna have to get some of those going.
Yeah.
But another thing that we need to get going is our increasingly notorious hobby trivia game.
Guys, I gotta go.
In which we will ask our guest, Iron Gopher, 3 questions. And the winner of a raffle on our Discord will get to ask our next guest a question. We didn't have any questions from the Ko-Fi today, mostly because I asked really, really late.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Oh, dang it. Teacup couldn't answer because she's actually... I have a question from Teacup.
Oh, do you have one? Oh, let's do that then. Yeah. Oh, well, let me do that real quick. So, Ko-Fi backers, thank you for backing us. You get to ask a question of each of our podcast guests, and we have one question.
Oh my God, I am trying to remember it now. She's going to be so mad at me that I don't remember it.
She just tell you what it was, and you're supposed to memorize it?
She told me, and I was like, oh, yeah, you'll have to put that in. And then she never put it down, and now she's at work, and I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, God, she's going to hate me so much for this.
Okay, well, you can think about that while we're doing
We'll think about it.
Then.
Yeah.
If it was about the cookies, they were really good.
Okay, I'm glad.
I have to do the raffle, though, which I, again, didn't do.
Damn it.
See.
I feel like this is like just part of the show at this point. It's
Oh,
like
absolutely. 100%.
It's just part of it.
Okay, so 16. It's 16 view reactions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Oh, casual felon.
Oh, wow.
Gets the question. Casual felon is Alex, who is my co-host for the tournament at Ragnar Oktoberfest, the 5v5 tournament. We had a great time working together.
Dude. Love that guy.
We'll have to make sure that he gets his question in for.
I'm actually genuinely curious what his question will be.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No,
that's like one I'm particularly like immediately very interested to.
He'll have an interesting one. I bet you. All right. So I'm also going to write that down because I will forget, and then I'll be looking for that. If Gopher is able to get 2 out of 3 of our trivia questions right, Casual Felon will get a question for Band Blasters next podcast episode. Iron Gopher, we have a game. You have built a blaster called the Paragon, but here we'll be playing Para Here, with questions about locations well known in the hobby. How's the geography?
Okay.
Who wants to read one first? Grim file.
I can take the first one, I guess.
Go for it.
All right.
I will warn you both that the second one is long. There's a long setup for the second one.
All right.
Good Lord.
Actually, KT, are the questions actually highlighted? I don't remember if they were.
Oh no,
I will
thank
go
you.
through. I'll read it while you're doing that. All right.
Yep. I'll also I'm gonna take number 3.
All right.
I don't
perfect.
think I can read 2 like all the way through.
All right. So I'll take number 1. All right. Gopher. Mall Mutation Madness takes place annually at Mid Rivers Mall in St. Peters, Missouri, which has been owned by a number of different firms. What holding company owned the mall the year that the N Strike series launched?
Oh my god.
Is it A, Simon, B, Westfield, or C, CBL?
Really? This is what you're coming at me with.
All right.
Bunch of fucking bastards. Oh my god. The only one that I recognize as any sort of mall subsidiary is Simon. So Simon.
What makes you say Simon?
It's literally the only thing that I associate with a mall from that list.
Well, so don't forget to think. So remember, part of the question is when the N Strike series launched. So
When
ponder that
so
as
what,
well.
like- when the N Strike series launched.
Think like circa 2000 like 4 or 5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, so I was 18.
All right. So I'm 18. What malls existed at the time? What's their name?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was Simon, CBL, and what else? What was the third option?
Westfield.
Westfield. I'm gonna change it up and say Westfield.
Westfield would be correct, actually. Yes.
All
It
right.
launched in 2003 from around 1998 until 2006. The mall was called Westfield Shopping Town Mid Rivers. CBL bought the mall soon after. Simon is another large mall holding company that bought all of Westfield's U.S. malls around 2020.
So yeah, Westfield shut down, and Simon owns all their
Yeah.
stuff now, which is why you can only think about Simon.
Yeah.
I remember
Interesting,
Westfield malls though
Same.
for sure.
I know Westfield more than I know any of the others. That's
Yeah.
why I was like, oh, Westfield. That's the ones I know.
It's only very recent. In fact, I think there's quite a few malls that are technically owned by Simon now, but they haven't fully changed all the branding over. So you can still drive around, I think, and find a few Westfield malls, but they are actually owned by Simon at this point. Okay,
Okay.
you're one up. Here's your next one.
I'm ready.
In Centralia, Washington, regular Nerf games are held and attended by some well-known local folks like Captain Xavier and Beret, among others, at Fort Borst, a public park named after Joseph Borst. The wooden structure, often seen in gameplay videos, it's like a square wooden, looks like a cabin that's kind of funny shaped, is a blockhouse built during a war between white settlers and local Native American tribes around 1856, which was purchased by Joseph Borst after the war. Although his family lived in the blockhouse for a time, they built a new house around 1860, which still stands at the other end of the park, although at the time they were located directly adjacent to each other. Around when was this blockhouse moved to its current location? A, just after the house was finished, B, around 1920, or C, around 1980 when the house was restored as a museum.
I'm so upset with you guys.
There are some tips in this one that I can immediately like notice though in the sentence if you want us to reread it.
You can also get one wrong.
That 3.5 paragraphs? Okay.
So Borst fights in this colonization war, and then settles down in the area where he was involved in that, right? And they live in this structure that was built for the war. And he builds his house next door, and they buy the land, and he builds his house next door to it. And they live in it while they're building the house. And then, so the question is, did they just immediately move it, or did they wait a while? Or did they never move it and just lived with this blockhouse, this like military blockhouse right by their house for a long time, and then it got moved in the 80s?
My initial suspicion would be that it got moved in the 80s during a restoration.
All right. Is that your final answer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to take that. It's incorrect.
No!
It was moved around 1920. And interestingly, obviously I did a lot of research on this question. I don't know why.
For real.
They presumably they moved into the house and they didn't want to move it again. But it is interesting to me that structure that we see in all these Nerf videos that Beret and others post, it's been sitting there for over 100 years, and it's significantly older than that.
So it's a wartime fort structure from like the 1850s?
Yes. So it dates back to 1856, roughly. And it was used as like a storehouse for supplies or whatever. It was near the river because they were using the river to shuttle supplies around. And when the war ended, he like bought the structure. A detail that they include in all the stuff that's known about it is he bought it for $500, and they lived in it, but he built a proper house for his family. And the land wound up being a park. The house is still there, and it is a museum. You can go visit it. But it's like you never see the house in the game videos because they play in the part of the park that has this structure. It's interesting too because if you look at the park, it's a huge park with like baseball fields and soccer fields and a ton of wooded areas, but they have always played in that area where this building from the 1850s.
Even dating back to like videos in like 2016, it was like everyone just organizes around that, and it's weird because that building is almost 170 years old now. Now that I think about it, doing some like quick maths. Yep. That's an old structure.
Yeah, and it's been where it is over 100 years already. After it sat, it was there for 70 years before it got moved. Almost. Anyway, that's fine though. You are 1-1. And Grim can dig in on the third question.
We cannot dispute that the Dart Zone Pro Tour happened, but if you were there, how far would you have to go to get a cup of coffee? Is it A, 4 miles around a residential district to Canal Coffee Company, B, across the campus quad to a Starbucks next to the IT service deck, or is it C, next door to a Tim Hortons? I picked this one because I was there, so I know the answer already.
Okay.
These questions, my God.
So, this is brutal.
I can't remember who was it that like at Rag. Never mind. That's gonna give away the answer.
So okay, there's each potential answer has distinct hints, and if you can figure out figure out or remember where Dart Zone Pro Tour was, you should be able to figure it out. If you know a little bit about
the venue.
Am I allowed to phone a friend?
I can give some vague hints, I suppose. The city was Rochester, New York, if that's any help.
Okay,
I
so
cannot get any
if
more specific for
if it's
venue.
Rochester, New York, that immediately makes me think it's got to be Tim Hortons because it has to be something sort of extravagant. And Tim Hortons is a
You
Canadian-based company, and that's relatively close to Canada. I think they might have some in the actual area.
Okay,
I gotta
so
go Tim Hortons.
you would be correct. It is a next door to a Tim Hortons. So for some background, option A is from Foam Pro Tour 2023 in North Carolina. Kennel Coffee Co. only exists in the South, mostly in the Carolinas. Option B is on campus at University of North Carolina, Charlotte. The location of 2024's Foam Pro Tour and End War. Option C is Rochester, New York, near Total Sports Experience. Tim Hortons famously mostly exist in the northeastern United States and Canada. The additional thing that I would have thought is also a pretty good hint is across the campus quad would immediately disqualify B because Foam Pro Tour, or rather the Dart Zone Pro Tour, was historically not on the campus of the End War that year. It was in a completely different like arena venue that was like 20-30 minute like walk from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, as infamous as this event is and like the sort of psychopathy of the hobby, I have no idea about it. Like that's so
Yep.
far from my interest in this hobby.
Well, and I think a lot of
Oh.
people know Dart Zone Pro Tour because of the Dispute Pro Tour memes and because of various things that
Oh,
happened
yeah.
at that event. But they like a lot of those people don't know where it happened or like the context behind any of that stuff. And I think it's helpful. It's helpful
Or the
to
nearest
to know
coffee
what the nearest
spot.
coffee shop
We got
is.
to know that for next time around.
Yeah.
I lived through a historical hobby moment, apparently, I
That
guess.
is vicious.
Well, congratulations. You're 2-1. So casual
I feel
felon.
dirty.
Get a free question.
That's how they mostly leave people feeling, I think.
Oh, so this is intentional.
I'm pretty proud of that last one. I feel good about that one.
No, the last one, normally they're like way worse than that. Like I feel like this one was a lot more solvable just with a little bit of like
I feel like
a
I
little
put
bit of
good
thinking.
hints in there. I think that it was
Like
and I think
I like this last one.
I appreciate I like the comedy of it sounds like the question's going to be at one thing and then suddenly it's about where the coffee shops are. I just think
Yeah, that was just a blind turn. Like,
Well, I mean, if there's nothing more about Nerf events, it's waking up at like having way too little sleep, being sleep deprived, and then immediately having to thereafter go for like hours and hours and hours on end on that extreme lack of sleep.
that is a lot of
for the
people's
stuff you gotta do.
experience. That's
A lot of coffee, a lot of energy drinks are consumed. And then maybe quite a lot of other drinks the night after for good sleep, surely.
So, having experienced that, we wanted to talk a little bit about products coming out of China, and sort of an increased relationship. I think we've got Blast Pro Shop doing imports and making things happen. We've got some degree of increase between in some of the other hobby shops making things available that previously were only available overseas. We covered a couple new. Oh, there you go.
The fire rat.
So that's a fire rat, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
yep.
Well, so we covered a couple things in this episode. Previously we covered the first big one. We were like racking our brains trying to remember the name of this thing. We covered the HQ G4, which is like a lever action.
The
It's
machine.
like a
Yeah.
tube-fed CNC
Right.
like lever action thing.
Which looks like so much fun. I would run like a brightly colored one of those at an HVZ all freaking day.
See,
it just
the
looks
unfortunate-
so fun.
The unfortunate thing is too is I finally found out that someone like got to try one in person, and they said that its prime was horrendous and like it hurt their hands.
Okay,
to prime.
but you can put some grip
I-
wrap
I-
on it or something, right? Like you can figure it out.
my answer is just get Banshee to leather wrap it, and then
Right.
you lower the spring load, make it HVZ compliant,
Yo,
easy peasy, fix the problem.
I just
there we
went
go.
to I just went to my local. There's a store near us that's like somewhere between like a thrift store and like a material reuse store. So they have like walls of fabric and all kinds of stuff. I just got like a brand new pack of like baseball bat grip wrap for like 50 cents or something. You
Yeah.
know, it's just about that kind of stuff. You know, you find things like that, and then you just kind of hang on to them until you go like, oh, this needs that. This is the place.
I just want whatever the one they were showing in the original promotional videos that had like the etching on it that was like
Yes.
gold with like the clear acrylic on it
Totally.
or whatever. I want that one.
So the question, you know, I mean that product, I don't know where it's at right now. I
No
don't
idea.
get the sense that anyone in the U.S. is planning on importing them or has worked on that. But there's some new things. We also it's worth pointing out too. AK Blaster Mod, I believe, is a China-based distributor, right?
I vaguely-
Hong Kong?
They're in Hong Kong. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean that's
they're
yeah,
in
Hong
like
Kong.
they're in like one of the islands or like
Right.
surrounding region countries.
So, you know, they've always sort of been a little bit of an inlet to that, and they've been pivoting a little bit more towards actually making blasters available lately. And we're talking in the show about the FC330. We had previously covered the C330, which was the like single shot machined thingy thing. And this seems to be, they've taken that platform and pushed it further, and it's now like a mag-fed primary. And the interesting thing about it is that it is a mix of machined parts and 3D printed parts, which is not something we see every day. And it's a really interesting approach. It certainly offers. I like that it gives you this, in theory at least. I haven't held one, obviously, but it gives you the strength of metal parts and the sort of like fit and finish of metal parts, but you also get a lot of easy, cheap customization by being able to 3D print other parts.
That's like a page out of Eli Wu's stuff.
Yeah.
Eli does, so his personal AEBs, you know, there were parts that he got machined for where it was like structurally needed, and then the rest of it was 3D printed.
Right.
So it's sort of in the same vein as that. It's not as complex as his, but it's still kind of cool to hear that they're doing like a mishmash of both.
From
parts,
what I
actually
could tell at a glance when I looked at it when I was writing scripts from it, there's like a tube essentially that has a bunch of like channels where a bunch of the stuff rides along, and then you put your plunger tube and all the other stuff in this like core. And so like all the core components are in this like metal part, and then the blaster itself is where all the 3D printed stuff gets attached, like different stock types that you can have, different pumps, different top rails, and whatever else they would decide to do with it. So it's like there's like a core part of the blaster, and then the 3D printed bits is like everything else attached to it that changes the configuration.
Yeah.
Is kind of what I got the sense of when I looked at it.
Well, and when I first looked at it, I was kind of like, oh, it's another pump action mag-fed primary springer. But like I think this puts a really kind of a unique angle on it. The customization that it offers, the idea that you could design your own parts for it, potentially around the core, and of course the fact that it also offers a
bolt action
prime.
It's both bolt and pump action at the same time.
Which
you
I
can
think
do
is
either
really
or.
cool. Which I think is really cool. So there's a lot of potential there. Thinking more along the lines of the C330, the D330. Ironic. I don't know if there's a relationship there with the names being so similar, but it's a different designer and a different manufacturer. But this is an all machined blaster with like plastic parts. And it's a CNC machine, and it's a single shot pistol. Watching the videos on this thing, the loading mechanism is so cool. He just like thrusts it forward and it opens the chamber, and you put a dart in, and then you pull it shut, and that closes the breech and primes it. And then he's getting So okay, this was another really interesting thing because in the demo videos, he'll shoot it through the chronograph off screen and then put his thumb over the first digit on the chronograph and show it on camera. And the reason for that is it's shooting
Yeah.
hotter than is actually allowed in China.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh,
Yeah, that's that's something.
Like, I think if I recall as well, he was specifically using like 0.7 gram millimeter or 0.7 gram darts.
So
which
it
is
depends.
not
It
typically
depends on the
hobby
darts
standard.
that he's using. Yeah.
However, interestingly enough, and I remember noting this at the tournament, a lot of people had these blue with white tip darts that Monkey Mods was sourcing.
Mm.
And they were like heavies. They were like 1.2 grams, but his were like 1.4, and they were a different variant of that same dart type. And a lot of people really liked them for accuracy. And he started loading those in the video, and I have to wonder if that was to drop the FPS, so that way it's a safer number, is the reason those might be a thing over there.
Maybe.
But as a
yeah.
result, when you take them over to the Americas, they work really good for accurate darts and competitive. So it's just like a little happy accident there. But it's very weird because at first looking at the video, I thought it was priming like a big bad bow where you like pull it to prime and then you breach load. But then I realized that it's very weird because you have to pull the trigger to open the breach, and then it slides open. You load the dart, then you push, and that's what primes it, like a normal pump action, and then you fire.
And it seems like the prime's pretty I don't know. It seems really cool.
It doesn't seem like it's a very hard prime, and it's a very neat system. I haven't really seen many blasters, or like much of any blaster at all, function in this particular way. So even though it's a single shot, it's a very novel single shot. I like it. I like it quite a lot.
Totally. I think there's a lot of cool potential there.
I mean, any sort of innovation that has its place, you know, even if it's a wild one-off, it might lead to something else.
Yes, 100%. And speaking of, talking about Western ties to this, he's calling it a grenade launcher. It's really like a shell firing.
It's like a shotgun master key more than anything.
40 max. Was it like a 40 max? Because it looked like one to me.
It doesn't
It's
shoot
not,
40 max. It takes
but it's reminiscent of a lot of the
shells.
like 40 max
Okay.
shell blasters that we have. But no, it's a Springer.
Nice.
He's calling it a grenade launcher. We Tuo Wan Jin Yu. I do not know how to pronounce his name correctly.
I looked at like a bajillion different like how to pronounce Chinese words, and I was like, I cannot say this all and then read the script all in one thing correctly. I'm going to do my best shot.
You know where you could go for help probably is Jake.
Yeah.
Jake could probably help you. He's been
think
doing
I got it
great
mostly
work.
down.
Yeah. But yeah, I bet if you ask Jake, but it sounds like you're probably doing good enough. People were so sketch about the pronunciation that we landed on for how are you pronouncing it? The Kunlun or
Quinlan.
Quinlan, yeah.
Because I was like, the other one, if I say it really fast, doesn't sound so good. And I was like, I just no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just like, I out of dart said Quinlan is also viable. I will go with the safe one.
Totally.
I will say, when you started saying Quinlan in the video, it really threw me and made me think of like Quigley Down Under, the old Tom Selleck movie. And I was like, when you're talking about a Chinese blaster, I'm thinking about an American actor playing an Australian man. What is going on?
Wow.
But yeah, I looked at the actual word and I was like, okay, now I got it.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so the thing that's really interesting about this is it takes proprietary shells. It shoots one shell at a time. It can be run as either it has its own grip, right? But you can take that off and it'll run as a master key. Which feels, and it's a 3D printed thing, and the files are 2 yuan, which is like 25 cents in American dollars. Which, like, I keep saying, pair with someone in the United States who has access to printables, you could be charging like $5 for files like this, easy. give that person one of those dollars, right? And like people in the
Yeah.
US would buy this and print it and make them for sure. Like an underslung master key like that out of a shell system. There was a murmuring too that they might be down to modify it to take silly shells.
I think it was MPH is working on modifying it to work.
Okay,
to
there
take
we go.
silly shells. Because you have to buy it through Bilibili, and it takes a long time to create an account. So a lot of people don't necessarily want to go make an account to go do that, which is why potentially like partnering with someone to distribute the files might be a bad idea.
Yeah, even if you still just want to sell it cheap, like sell it for $2 or something. Like it's worth it, you know. Like people will pick that up.
Well, I mean, at that point, they could still be offering 50% of the $2 to whoever they're partnered with, and still be making 4 times the amount that they were.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like, come on.
Exactly. That's interesting. I don't know. I wonder what the market is like in China for 3D printed files for niche hobbies like this. Is he selling it at that because he's just trying to like cover fees maybe involved in Bilibili, or is he selling it at that price because he's undervaluing it, or because there's not a lot of people interested in that in China? I don't know.
Yeah, it's very curious because you would think, it's not a small amount of effort that's gone into this.
Right.
And even if a person doesn't appropriately evaluate their time, like that just seems super cheap.
It also just looks really fun design aspect wise. It's like it is an underslung, in air quotes, grenade launcher, but it very much does not look like firearm. It looks fun toy, or that an attempt was made in the Greebling to give it some like sci-fi element to it that like has some fun factor. Reminiscent of like I'm seeing like stuff that reminds me of like the big bad bow, or like the not the sharpshooter, but the I'm trying to think of what was the pistol, lock and load, like the front end specifically with some of like the triangular like indentation in the front.
Okay.
Here, I am just sitting here, and I should be bringing it up here in our screen share. So here it is in pistol format with a few of the shells, and somewhere there's video of him using it as an underslung, but you can see how it works, right? Like the grip piece kind of comes off the back, and it can just be rail mounted. I think there's another way to mount it as well, and then the pump action works, and you pull the pump back and you put the shell in through the pump, and then you push it forward and it's ready to fire. Yeah, it's just
nice.
Yeah, it's just fun and cute and cool. I like it. So hopefully we can. I'd love to see that become like that's the kind of information sharing that's super easy between China and the U.S. or Europe. A lot easier than importing a whole bunch of stuff. So I would love to see that happen.
Yeah, because even if it's not like a super high performer, like it's an interesting effect and it's an interesting aesthetic.
Yep.
And you have play value there.
Yeah. Well, and HVZers would flip for this, right?
Fair.
The ability to change your undersling so quickly because it's shell fed between different options. Someone could make a 0.5 mega shell for this too.
Our number one thing on Blue Team I remember running into is certain squads not having like someone who had mega on hand.
Yep. I was so tempted because I didn't bring a blaster with me to that event. I was so tempted literally just to bring like a Proud Papa with a mega attachment just so I had something. But then I realized that the blaster Vile made didn't have any kind of rail. So I was like, what am I going to do with it?
I literally have never like particularly invested too much into mega because I was always just like, if I go to an event, it'll be end war or local stuff. So I don't need mega. After RAG and being like, oh, that was like unironically some of the most fun I've ever had at a Nerf event. If I want to go to a Nerf event, I want to go to RAG again. I'm having to think, shoot, I suddenly need like mega or something that fires mega to attach to my blasters.
Yeah.
You need a quad fate. That's what you really need.
I do need a quad
I
fate.
need to make a mod guide for it.
So
Everybody
true.
needs a quad fate.
Yeah, wow. Where am I going to get one of those?
I don't
How's
know.
that going to
Mine.
happen? Jeez.
I will say, if you're ever in a pinch and you just need a quick Mega Blaster and you have access to a Centurion, you can rip the drivetrain out of the Centurion and then just use it as a pull and release sort of inline deal, and it works incredibly well. Like, it works way better than it has any reason to.
I love the idea that if you're in a pinch, if you're in a tough spot and you need an easy solution, you can find this decade-old blaster and
rip the
extract
internals out
a
of it.
specific part of it and use it in a way that it was not designed, and that's your
Okay,
easy solution. to this
I might be
problem.
living in my own bubble where I have like seven of them
only
in the
an
room next to me,
integrator,
but
like
I have
only
like,
someone who does integrations would be in the position to like be in that train of thought. It's like, picks up
I mean,
the thing
I
because
have,
they've
like,
gutted the entire thing.
4
and
of
Okay,
those
valid
it
point.
does
turtles.
this.
Come on.
valid point. That doesn't negate the fact that it's
It
actually
still
really
works.
nice.
I believe you. I believe you. I believe you. Okay. Well, with that, I think we've casted a great pod here. It was really wonderful having you on Gopher and just getting to chat and hang out. And
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Everybody needs to be sure to check out Gopher's work. Where can people check out your work, Gopher?
They can't. That's the trick. You gotta find me on the internet, pin me down, and then make me show you.
So
But that being said, I do have an Instagram, Iron Gopher, over on Instagram. You can find some of my stuff there. There's some old stuff over on Reddit if you really want to do some digging. Otherwise, you just got to find me out in the wild.
Fair enough.
rumor has it you can find him in Vile Mod's Discord and occasionally in the Mod Spotlight, or not Mod Spotlight. We don't call it that anymore. The community crosshairs. That's
yeah.
it. I'm getting that tired. That we're like,
Sometimes you'll find Gopher it on my stream as well, lurking
true.
in chat. It happens.
there as well. Go
None of
bother
this is
him.
true.
Go bug him about D&D, AD&D specifically, or like
But
Vile.
no, if you ever can find me out, I'm always down to answer questions. I love contributing where I can. You just got to be willing to put up with me.
I'm always tagging Gopher whenever someone's just like, I'm trying to do this kind of paint thing. I'm just like,
when
at
someone
Iron Gopher.
asks me what you can do with the hobby, I always show like Paragon or one of Gopher's
Yeah.
other works, and like
yeah,
that is one of the first things I show almost every time without fail.
totally. Vile,
Here's
how
one
did
more for the road.
Boobtober go? Oh my
Oh,
god.
Booptober, for anybody who didn't know, for the month-long event for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, for raising money for the BCRF, we actually, for my campaign, we raised $1,664 almost for the team, which are for my campaign. The entire team, actually, because we have about 40 plus streamers. Actually, Cat's Blaster Mods also took part. I think Cat's raised 475, if I'm correct. The team total was $16,400 and I want to say $16 total as a team, which was incredible. So yeah, it was the best year
exciting.
we've ever had.
That's amazing.
Yeah, raised a lot of money. It was incredible. Yeah, did really
so
really
good.
Yeah,
good.
no, you did like an excellent job that I was totally unaware of because I was very busy. But I arrived precisely when I meant to. That being giveaway day, I
true.
donated and then I went and passed out. I did not take part in the giveaway itself.
Thank you, though.
I immediately then after left.
I wanted to be at the giveaway. I just wasn't free. I just couldn't be there.
I literally would like arrived the day of the giveaway, realizing, oh shoot, I was supposed to show up the day before and donate. I'm going to donate now, and then I'm going to bed. Goodbye. Enjoy the prizes or whatever. Have fun. I still have no idea who won what, but I'm sure everyone was very happy with
lot of
what they
good
got.
stuff. It got distributed out. A lot of people won things between my giveaways and even Katz's giveaways. A lot of people got some cool stuff. So I'm really excited and happy about that.
I gave to the larger thing. I'm connected now with an artist for whom I'm going to write some original music because I donated my labor and mental effort to that.
Very much
process. So I'm
appreciated.
excited to collaborate with
Good
them.
on you.
Yeah, it was really great. Anyway, sweet. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, listeners. We, of course, will be back with another episode in 2 weeks of both the show and the podcast, and then 2 more after that. And then we're going to take a little break for the end of the year, and we'll be back in January. So stay tuned, and we will talk to you all again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.